Lieutenant Carter stood at the viewport of the transport shuttle, watching as Arcturus Prime grew larger in the distance. The massive orbital station hung in space like a small moon, its metallic surface gleaming under the light of three nearby stars. Somewhere inside that enormous structure was the Galactic Military Academy, and was about to become its first human cadet. She pressed her hand against the cool glass. At 5 feet 6 inches tall and weighing just over 130 pounds, she knew exactly what she looked like compared to most galactic species. Small, fragile, weak. The other passengers on the shuttle had given her plenty of strange looks during the journey. A tall, blue-skinned had actually asked if she was someone's pet. Had smiled politely and said nothing. Words meant little. Actions would speak for her soon enough. The shuttle docked with a soft thud and the airlock hissed open. Grabbed her single duffel bag and followed the flow of new cadets into the station. The corridor was huge, built to accommodate species of all sizes. A creature that looked like a walking boulder lumbered past her, easily 8 feet tall. Behind it came something serpentine and graceful, its scales shimmering green and gold. Signs in multiple languages pointed toward the academy wing. Followed them, her boots clicking on the metal floor. The gravity felt slightly light, probably set to galactic standard. She would need to adjust to that. The orientation hall was enormous. Hundreds of cadets filled the tiered seating, representing dozens of different species. Found a seat near the back and settled in, feeling dozens of eyes tracking her movement. She kept her expression neutral and her back straight. A tall figure stepped onto the central platform. It stood nearly 7 feet tall, with a narrow body covered in chitinous plates. Its head was triangular, dominated by large, compound eyes. 2 blade-like arms folded across its chest. "I am Commander," the creature said, its voice surprisingly smooth despite its appearance. "Welcome to the Galactic Military Academy. You have been selected from billions of applicants across 43 member worlds. You represent the finest military minds your species have to offer." The commander's eyes swept across the assembled cadets. "Here, you will learn strategy, tactics, weapons proficiency, and hand-to-hand combat. You will be pushed beyond what you believe are your limits. Many of you will fail. Those who succeed will become officers in the Galactic Peacekeeping Force, sworn to protect all member worlds from external threats and internal conflicts." Another figure joined on the platform. This one was built like a barrel, with 4 powerful arms extending from a broad torso. Its skin had a rocky texture, gray-brown and thick. "This is Weapons Master," continued. "He will oversee all physical training. I suggest you pay close attention to his instruction. He has broken more bones than most species have in their entire bodies." His mouth split in what might have been a smile. "Not all at once, of course," he rumbled. Nervous laughter rippled through the assembled cadets. Noticed that several aliens looked her way during the laughter, as if expecting her to show fear. She kept her face blank. The orientation continued for another hour. Room assignments were distributed, class schedules explained, and rules outlined. Finally, the cadets were dismissed to find their quarters. This room was in the human-compatible wing, one of the smaller sections of the station. The gravity here was set to Earth standard, and she felt the familiar weight settle onto her shoulders as she crossed the threshold. It felt like coming home. The room was small but functional. A bed, a desk, a refresher station, and a small equipment locker. Unpacked her few belongings and changed into her issued training uniform. The material was strange, some kind of adaptive fabric that adjusted to her body temperature. A chime sounded at her door. She opened it to find 3 aliens standing in the corridor. The one in front was built like a praying mantis, all sharp angles and quick movements. Behind it stood a serpentine creature with intelligent eyes, and next to that was another barrel-shaped alien similar to but younger. "You are the human," the mantis-like alien said. It was not a question. "I am of IV. This is Aura of and of. We are your classmates." "Carter," she replied. "Nice to meet you." His head tilted, his compound eyes examining her closely. "Your world is not well known in the galaxy. Few humans travel beyond your system. Why are you here?" "To learn," said simply. "Same as everyone else." "But you are so small," rumbled. "My species, we are strong, they are fast, they are flexible and quick. What can your species do?" Aura's forked tongue flickered out. "That is rude." "It is a fair question," interrupted. Commander announced physical assessments tomorrow, hand-to-hand combat evaluation. I do not wish to injure the human on her first day. He looked directly at. Perhaps you should request modified training. There is no shame in acknowledging physical limitations. Felt a familiar patience settle over her. She had heard variations of this speech her entire life. Too small for the Marines, too weak for special forces, too fragile for combat duty. And yet here she stood. I appreciate your concern, she said calmly, but I'll participate in the standard training. Mandibles clicked together. Very well, do not say I did not warn you. He turned and walked away, his long legs carrying him quickly down the corridor, followed without another word. Aura remained a moment longer. Forgive them, many species see difference as weakness, but I have studied Earth's file. Your world is unusual, is it not? Higher gravity than most habitable planets. Almost twice the galactic standard, confirmed. The eyes gleamed with interest. Fascinating. Evolution on such a world would produce very different results. She paused. I look forward to seeing what those differences are. Then she too glided away, leaving alone in the doorway. Closed the door and sat on her bed. Tomorrow would be interesting. The other species clearly expected her to fail, to prove too weak for their standards. They had no idea what humanity was capable of, and that was fine. Earth had deliberately kept a low profile in galactic affairs, choosing diplomacy over displays of strength. But tomorrow that would change, at least a little. Changed into her exercise gear and headed to the training facilities. She found a gravity chamber and increased the setting to 1.5 times Earth standard. The weight crushed down on her immediately, but she welcomed it. She ran through her combat drills, each punch and kick delivered with precision. Her muscles burned, her lungs worked hard, but she pushed through 2 full hours of training. When she finished, she was drenched in sweat but satisfied. She showered and returned to her quarters, where she ate a simple meal and prepared for sleep. As she lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, she thought about her instructors back on Earth. They had prepared her for this moment, had trained her not just in combat but in patience, in understanding. Woke before dawn, though there was no real dawn on the station. She went through her morning routine with careful precision, stretches to loosen her muscles, a light breakfast of protein and carbohydrates, mental preparation, focusing her thoughts on the task ahead. The combat assessment hall was located in the station's central ring, where gravity could be adjusted for different species. When arrived, dozens of other cadets were already there. The hall was massive, easily 200 feet across, with a floor made of some kind of adaptive material that could change density and hardness. Along one wall stood various training equipment, combat dummies, practice weapons, and monitoring devices that could measure strike force and impact. The ceiling was high enough to accommodate even the tallest species, and observation platforms lined the upper levels. Found a quiet corner and began her warm-up. She rolled her shoulders, rotated her hips, and went through a series of light shadow boxing movements. Nearby was lifting weights that would have crushed most humans. Aura was coiled in a complex stretching position that seemed to involve her entire body. Was practicing high kicks against a training post, his movements almost too fast to follow. A deep gong echoed through the hall. All activity stopped. Commander strode onto the main floor, followed by Weapons Master. The cadets quickly assembled in formation. Today begins your combat assessment, announced. You will demonstrate proficiency in hand-to-hand combat. Each of you will spar with an opponent of similar mass. The goal is not to injure, but to show technique, control, and tactical thinking. Matches end at first submission or when an instructor calls a stop. Stepped forward, his forearms crossed. We will use combat principles as the foundation, leverage over strength, precision over power, technique over size. Watch carefully. He gestured and 2 cadets stepped forward, a blue-skinned and a lean cat-like. They were roughly the same size, both around 6 feet tall and perhaps 180 pounds. They bowed to each other and took fighting stances. The match was quick but controlled. The used longer reached to keep the at distance, while the tried to close in and use its natural claws. After 2 minutes, the secured a joint lock and the tapped out. Good technique, said, next pair. The matches continued. Watched each one carefully, noting the different fighting styles. Some species relied on speed, others on flexibility. The heavier species used their mass to control opponents. It was fascinating to see how each had adapted combat to their natural abilities. Then's name was called. He faced off against another, and the match was brutal. Both moved with incredible speed, their bladed limbs striking and parrying in a blur. One by sweeping his opponent's legs and pinning him in under 30 seconds. The watching cadets murmured appreciatively. His match was different. His opponent was another, and the two simply slammed into each other like boulders. The sound of impact made wince. They grappled, each trying to use superior positioning to topple the other. Eventually, one by lifting his opponent completely off the ground and holding him there until submission. Cadet Carter called, stepped onto the mat. The floor beneath her feet felt strange, softer than normal. It was set to galactic standard density, she realized, designed for species from lower gravity worlds. Your opponent will be Cadet, continued. A female stepped forward. She was lean and quick-looking, about height but with longer limbs. Her blue skin had a slight shimmer to it, and her large eyes studied with obvious concern. Approached the edge of the mat but did not step on. She looked at Commander, then at Weapons Master. Her expression was troubled. Commander said quietly, I do not wish to injure her. Humans are fragile, are they not? Their bones break easily, their skin tears. I have read the basic files on Earth species. A ripple of whispers spread through the watching cadets. Stood on the mat, waiting, her expression neutral. This was the moment she had expected, the moment when assumption met reality. His voice rang out clearly. Perhaps the human should observe rather than participate. We do not want to cause an interstellar incident by breaking the only human in the academy. Several cadets laughed, others nodded in agreement. Even some of the more sympathetic aliens looked worried. Ara's tongue flickered nervously. Commander's compound eyes narrowed. Cadet Carter has passed all entrance requirements. She has earned her place here. I understand, sir, said. But surely different species have different capabilities. I mean no disrespect to the human, but my has only 0.6 Earth gravity. I am adapted for strength in my environment. The human comes from a heavy world, yes, but she is still so small, so delicate-looking. Spoke for the first time. Her voice was calm and clear. I appreciate your concern, Cadet, really I do, but I did not come here to watch. She turned to Commander. Permission to demonstrate human capabilities, sir. His head tilted slightly, a gesture that might have been curiosity. What did you have in mind, Cadet Carter? A striking demonstration instead of a sparring match, if that would satisfy the assessment requirements. Weapons Master's rocky face showed interest. Explain. Let me show what a human punch can do, said simply. Against the combat dummy, then everyone can decide if I am too fragile to participate. His four arms uncrossed. An acceptable modification, bring out the standard military dummy. Two attendants wheeled out a human-shaped dummy made of reinforced composite material. It was the same type used throughout the galaxy for training, designed to withstand strikes from most species without damage. The dummy was mounted on a solid base and equipped with internal sensors that could measure impact force. The record strike on this equipment is 4,200 newtons, announced. Achieved by Cadet during his entrance exam. Cadet Carter, you may demonstrate. Approached the dummy. She looked at it carefully, then back at the floor. Commander, permission to request one modification. Speak. Can the floor density be increased to Earth standard beneath the dummy? I fight better with proper weight distribution. Several cadets exchanged confused glances. Ara's eyes widened slightly as if realizing something, made a dismissive gesture. Earth gravity is 1.8 times galactic standard, a cadet called out. That will just make her slower. Ignored the comment. Approved, adjust the local gravity field. One of the attendants manipulated a control pad. The air around the dummy shimmered slightly as the floor's gravity generator increased output. Stepped into the field and felt the familiar weight settle onto her body. Her knees bent slightly, automatically adjusting to the pressure. This was home, this was normal. She stood before the dummy, relaxed but focused. The watching cadets grew quiet, curious despite themselves, even leaned forward slightly. On Earth, said loudly enough for everyone to hear, we learn to generate power from the ground up. It is simple physics. Force transfers through the body like a wave. She took her stance, feet shoulder-width apart, knees slightly bent, weight balanced between both legs. Her hands came up in a basic boxing guard. Hip rotation, she continued, demonstrating the movement slowly. Core engagement, shoulder drive, follow-through, every part of the body works together. Some cadets looked skeptical. Others seemed genuinely interested in the explanation. Weapons Master nodded slowly, recognizing sound combat theory. Took a breath, her body settled. She focused on the center of the dummy's chest. Then she struck. Her right fist shot forward in a perfectly straight line. Her hips rotated. Her shoulder drove through. Her entire body weight transferred into that single point of impact. The sound was like a thunderclap. The combat dummy rocked backward violently, its base scraping against the floor despite being bolted down. The force meter on its side flashed rapidly, numbers climbing. 8,950 newtons. The hall went absolutely silent. The silence lasted for perhaps 3 seconds, then chaos erupted. Cadets jumped to their feet, pointing at the force meter, stared at the display as if it had personally insulted him. His record had just been doubled. The mandibles hung open in a way that would have been comical under different circumstances. Even Ara, usually so controlled, had her scales rippling with visible shock. "That cannot be accurate," said loudly. "The equipment must be malfunctioning." Weapons Master walked to the combat dummy and examined the force meter carefully. He ran diagnostic checks using a handheld device. After a moment, he looked up at the assembled cadets. "The meter is functioning perfectly," he announced. The strike registered at 8,950 newtons, more than twice the previous record. Another wave of shocked conversation filled the hall. A tall, crystalline cadet stood up. "She must be cybernetically enhanced. That is the only explanation." "I am not enhanced," said calmly. "I am a baseline human, no modifications, no implants. This is natural capability for my species." "Impossible," another cadet insisted. "You are half the size of physics does not work that way." Turned to face the crowd. "Physics works exactly that way. Mass by acceleration equals force. I may have less mass than cadet, but I can generate greater acceleration. Plus, humans evolved on a high-gravity world. Our bone density is 40% greater than most species here. Our muscle composition is optimized for explosive power." Aura was nodding now, her scientific mind clearly racing. "Of course. Evolutionary adaptation to environmental pressure. The heavier the gravity, the stronger the species must be to function normally." Commander stepped forward. "Cadet Carter, I believe one more demonstration would be educational for your fellow cadets. Would you be willing?" "Yes, sir." "This time," continued, "explain your technique as you execute it. Help them understand." Moved back to her starting position. The cadets settled down, now watching with intense focus rather than dismissive skepticism. Even had moved closer to get a better view. "Human combat technique focuses on leverage and momentum," began. "We cannot rely on superior size or natural weapons like claws or enhanced speed, so we developed methods to maximize our natural capabilities." She took her stance again. "Watch my feet. I am not just standing. I am connected to the ground. When I punch, force travels from my feet, through my legs, into my hips, through my core, and finally into my arm and fist. It is one continuous chain." She moved through the motion slowly, demonstrating each component. Several cadets leaned forward, studying the mechanics. "Now watch at full speed." This time she threw a left hook. The motion was different from before, circular rather than straight, but equally devastating. Her whole body twisted into the strike. The dummy rocked sideways, its base actually lifting slightly on one side. The force meter flashed, 9,200 newtons. A hairline crack appeared in the arena floor beneath the dummy's base. More shocked exclamations from the cadets. Examined the crack with interest. "Impressive. The floor is reinforced composite designed to withstand heavy impacts." "Sorry, sir," said. "Should I stop?" His compound eyes gleamed. "No, Cadet Carter, I think one final demonstration is necessary. Full power this time. Show us what humanity is truly capable of when we stop holding back." Hesitated. "Sir, the equipment might not survive." "That is acceptable. Consider it a lesson in understanding the capabilities of different species. The equipment can be replaced. Ignorance is more expensive." Nodded slowly. "Yes, sir, I will need more room then." The cadets backed away instinctively as walked to the far side of the mat. She rolled her shoulders, shook out her arms, and took several deep breaths. When she spoke, Her voice carried clearly across the hall. This technique is called a Superman punch in human martial arts. It uses forward momentum plus rotational force. Everything I have shown you before, but amplified. She demonstrated the approach slowly. A few running steps, a small hop to gather momentum, then the punch delivered at the peak of the forward movement. All the force of her body weight plus the speed of her run concentrated into one point. At full speed, this is one of the most powerful strikes a human can deliver unarmed. We use it when maximum force is necessary. Called out, how much force are we talking about? In training on Earth, I have hit nearly 20,000 newtons, but that was on equipment designed for human striking power. This dummy was not built for that. His rocky face showed something like respect. Do it anyway. The other cadets echoed the sentiment. They wanted to see. They needed to see. Stepped back to her starting position. She focused on her breathing, centering herself. This was not about showing off. This was about showing them what they did not know, what their assumptions had hidden from them. She started her approach. 3 running steps, building speed. Her body compressed as she jumped, pulling her non-punching hand back. At the peak of her forward momentum, she extended completely. Every muscle in her body fired in perfect sequence. Her fist connected with the center of the dummy's chest. Time seemed to slow. The impact was enormous. The sound was not just a thunderclap, but a boom that echoed off the walls. The combat dummy did not just rock back. It exploded backward, its mounting bolts shearing off completely. The dummy flew 3 meters before crashing to the ground. But more impressive was what happened to the floor. The reinforced arena surface beneath where the dummy had been standing shattered. Not just cracked, but shattered. Chunks of composite material broke loose. The destruction spiderwebbed outward in a rough circle 3 meters wide. Pieces of floor clattered and settled with small tinkling sounds. The force meter had one moment to flash a number before its display flickered and died, overloaded by the impact. But in that moment, the watching cadets saw 18,400 newtons. Stood at the center of the damaged area, breathing normally. Her knuckles were slightly red but not bleeding. She turned to Commander and spoke into the stunned silence. "Sorry about the floor, sir." The hall erupted, not with laughter or mockery this time, but with amazed conversation. Cadets talked over each other, gesturing at the destroyed floor, at each other. The small human who they had wanted to protect now stood surrounded by broken floor, having just demonstrated force that most of them could never hope to achieve. Walked slowly to the edge of the damaged area. He looked down at the shattered floor, then at, "That was extraordinary," he said quietly. "I apologize for thinking you needed protection." Aura slithered closer, her eyes bright with fascination. "Your planet's gravity shaped your entire evolution. Everything about your species is optimized for that environment. Here, in lighter gravity, you are like a compressed spring released." Other cadets approached, wanting to see the damage up close, wanting to understand what they had witnessed. Even came forward, though he said nothing. His earlier arrogance had vanished, replaced by something like awe, followed Commander through several corridors, leaving the combat hall behind. Weapons Master walked beside them, his 4 arms swinging in a steady rhythm. Neither instructor spoke and kept her questions to herself. She had learned long ago that patience often brought more answers than asking. They entered a section of the station had not seen before. The corridors here were quieter, more refined. Through windows, she could see stars stretching into infinity. Finally, they reached a door marked with name and rank. The door slid open. The office inside was surprisingly simple. A desk, several chairs adapted for different body types, and walls covered with star charts and tactical displays. Gestured to a chair that looked human-compatible. Sat, remained standing, his rocky face thoughtful. Settled behind his desk, his blade-like arms folding precisely. "Cadet Carter, what do you know about Earth's application to join the Galactic Council?" The question surprised her. "Only what most humans know, sir. Earth applied for membership 20 years ago. We were granted provisional status 5 years ago. Full membership is still under review." "Do you know why full membership has been delayed?" Shook her head. "I assumed it was standard bureaucracy." Made a sound that might have been a laugh. If only it were that simple. Stood and walked to one of the star charts. "When Earth first made contact with galactic civilization, we conducted standard surveys of your world. Atmospheric composition, gravity, climate, biodiversity. The results were troubling." "Troubling how, sir?" Your planet is what we classify as a high gravity. The gravity alone exceeds galactic standard by 80%. Your atmospheric oxygen content is toxic to many species. Your weather patterns include hurricanes, tornadoes, and electrical storms of extraordinary violence. Your oceans contain predators that can weigh several tons. Your land has deserts that can kill from heat in hours and frozen regions that can kill from cold just as quickly. Had heard some of this before, but never stated so directly. I see. When we learned that intelligent life had evolved on such a world, there was considerable debate. Some council members argued that any species from such an environment would be too aggressive, too violent for peaceful integration. Others worried you would be too fragile, too specialized for your harsh world to function in standard galactic environments. Spoke up. Both groups were wrong, but for interesting reasons. Returned to his seat. Your people surprised us, Cadet Carter. When Earth was offered technology and resources, you did not demand military secrets or weapons. You asked for medical knowledge and agricultural techniques. When conflicts arose in nearby systems, you offered diplomatic support rather than military force. You chose patience over power. Earth believes in cooperation, sir. Indeed, which is why I fought to have you accepted into this academy. The council board was split. Some members feared your physical capabilities would make you dangerous. Others still believed you were too weak. Both sides wanted to exclude humans from military training. The pieces began to fall into place in mind. You wanted me to demonstrate the truth. Exactly. You are not here just to learn, Cadet Carter. You are here to show the galaxy what humanity represents. Physical capability combined with restraint. Strength paired with wisdom. You could have hurt Cadet badly in that sparring match. Instead, you chose a controlled demonstration. Nodded. That choice said more about your species than any display of force. Sat back in her chair, processing this information. So Earth sent me as a representative. Your government likely phrased it differently, but yes, you were chosen not just for your combat skills, but for your discipline and judgment. Paused. What you do here matters, Cadet Carter. How you interact with other species, how you handle challenges, how you use your capabilities. All of it will influence the Council's decision about Earth's full membership. The weight of responsibility settled onto shoulders. She had known her acceptance was significant, but not this significant. I understand, sir. Good, now there is practical matter to discuss. You have made quite an impression on your fellow cadets. What are your intentions moving forward? Considered carefully before answering. I would like to help them understand, sir, not just my capabilities, but the principles behind them. Human combat techniques are not about brute force. They are about physics, leverage, and efficiency. Those principles can help any species improve. His face split in a wide grin. An excellent answer. I was hoping you would say something like that. You have my permission to organize cross-training sessions, said. Voluntary participation only in your free time, but I believe many cadets will be interested. Thank you, sir. Dismissed, and Cadet Carter, well done today. Stood, saluted, and left the office. As she walked back toward the cadet quarters, her mind was racing. She had come here to prove herself. Now she understood she was proving much more than that. When she reached her room, she found several cadets waiting in the corridor. Ara was there, along with and even others she did not recognize yet stood nearby. Ara spoke first. Cadet Carter, I need to understand human physiology. Would you be willing to help me study it? For purely academic purposes, of course. Stepped forward. Your technique with the ground-up force generation, I have been training wrong my whole life. Could you teach me? Looked embarrassed. I owe you an apology. I assumed weakness based on appearance. That was foolish. If you are willing, I would like to learn from you. More cadets spoke up, each with questions or requests. Held up her hands, smiling. One at a time. And yes, I will help anyone who wants to learn, but understand what I showed today is not magic. It is physics and practice. Anyone can improve with the right training. Over the next hour, she answered questions. She explained bone density and muscle composition. She demonstrated basic striking mechanics. She showed them how leverage could multiply force. The aliens were fascinated, asking intelligent questions and making connections to their own physiology. Had been watching from a distance. Finally, he approached. His usual arrogance was gone, replaced by something that might have been humility. I was wrong about you, he said quietly. About your people, I judged without knowledge, and that was dishonorable. You were being cautious, replied. That is not wrong, but I appreciate you being willing to change your mind. Would you teach me as well? I am fast, but I rely too much on that speed. I need better technique. Of course. Word spread quickly through the academy. The human who had shattered the floor was offering to share her knowledge. Within days, voluntary training sessions had 20 participants. Within 2 weeks, 40. She organized them into small groups, teaching basic principles and helping each species adapt techniques to their unique physiology. Aura turned out to have a gift for understanding the mechanics. She helped translate human concepts into terms other species could grasp, became an assistant instructor, demonstrating how the techniques worked for heavier species, even contributed, showing how speed and technique could combine. The atmosphere in the academy began to shift. Species that had trained separately started working together. Cadets who had barely spoken to each other were now sharing techniques and learning from differences. The combat hall, once a place of individual achievement, became a place of collective growth. One evening, 3 weeks after her demonstration, was approached by during a training session. The had become a regular participant and had improved dramatically. Cadet Carter said, I have a request. Do you remember when I refused to spar you on assessment day? Of course. I would like to spar you now, properly this time with mutual respect. Smiled, I would be honored, but let us work up to it with training first. I want to make sure we are both prepared. Agreed. That night sat in her room, recording her daily log for Earth Command. She spoke honestly about the challenges and the progress, about the assumptions she had faced and the bridges she had built, about the responsibility she carried and how she was trying to honor it. 3 months passed in a blur of training, studying, and teaching, had become fully integrated into academy life. The cadets no longer saw her as the fragile human or even as the surprisingly strong human. She was simply Cadet Carter, one of them. Her cross-training sessions had become official curriculum. Commander had been so impressed with the results that he incorporated human combat principles into the standard instruction. Weapons Master often invited to assist with demonstrations, showing how technique could overcome size disadvantages. The damaged arena floor had been repaired, but at his insistence, a small section was preserved behind protective glass. A plaque next to it read, Strength comes in many forms. Understanding begins when assumptions end. Stood before that plaque now, early in the morning before most cadets were awake. Today was the final examination. Everything she had worked for came down to this. The door behind her opened. Aura slithered in, her scales gleaming in the low light. I thought I might find you here, nervous. A little, admitted. This is the real test, not just of my abilities, but of everything we have learned together. We will succeed, our team is strong. Smiled Squad 7, who would have thought. When teams had been announced for the final examination, had been assigned to Squad 7 along with Aura and a perfect mix of species and capabilities, but also a group that had not always gotten along. 3 months ago and had barely spoken. Had trained alone, believing cooperation was weakness. Now they were a unit. Other cadets began filtering into the assembly hall. The final examination was the most important event of the academy year. It would determine final rankings and duty assignments. Every cadet wanted to perform well, but more than that, they wanted to prove they belonged. Commander took the central platform precisely at dawn. His voice carried clearly across the assembled cadets. Today you face your final examination, a team combat scenario that will test everything you have learned. Strategy, tactics, cooperation, and adaptability. You will be divided into squads of 5. Each squad must complete a tactical objective while facing opposition. Holographic displays appeared, showing a fortified facility. The scenario is a peacekeeping mission. Hostages are held inside this structure by hostile forces. Your task is to extract all hostages safely within 2 hours. The opposition will be academy instructors in combat exoskeletons. They will not hold back. Murmurs rippled through the cadets. Fighting instructors in powered armor was a serious challenge. Several squads had already gone through, and word was that the results had been mixed. Squad 2, led by a decorated cadet and considered the favorite, had managed to extract only 2 of the 5 hostages before time expired. Squad 7 called, You are next, report to staging area 3. And her team gathered their gear and headed to the designated area. The staging zone was a simple room with basic equipment and a tactical display showing the facility layout. They had 30 minutes to plan. Spread the facility map across the table. 3 stories, reinforced walls, multiple entry points. The instructors will have positioned themselves strategically. Studied the structure. A frontal assault would fail, the walls are too strong and we would be expected. Aura's tongue flickered. We need to think unconventionally. What would the instructors not expect? Brought up defensive sensor data. They will have perimeter sensors. Standard approach routes will be monitored. All eyes turned to. She had not asked to be leader, but somewhere over the past months, the team had naturally looked to her for guidance. Not because she was strongest, but because she listened and brought people together. We lead together, said, echoing words she had spoken months ago. Everyone's input matters, so let us think about what makes us unique as a squad. She pointed to each member in turn. Aura, your species has thermal vision. You can see heat signatures through walls. You are strong enough to create breaches where none exist. You are faster than any instructor, even in your technical skills can disable their sensor systems. And you asked? Smiled, I am unpredictable. Humans are new to the galaxy. The instructors have files on every other species' tactics, but not ours, not really. Understanding dawned on the team's faces. Aura began calculating sight lines, identified weak points in the structure's rear wall, planned electronic countermeasures, mapped optimal movement paths. In 20 minutes, they had a plan. An unconventional, risky plan that relied on each member doing exactly what they did best. It was not the safest approach, but it had the best chance of complete success. The klaxon sounded, time to begin. Squad 7 moved through the simulated urban environment toward the target facility. The building loomed ahead, 3 stories of reinforced construction with narrow windows and limited access points. Somewhere inside were 5 holographic hostages and an unknown number of instructors. Phase 1 began smoothly. Used a portable device to create interference in the perimeter sensors. Not enough to obviously disable them, just enough to create blind spots. Aura scouted ahead, her thermal vision picking out 3 instructors positioned on the ground floor and 2 on the upper levels. Weapons Master is on the top floor, Aura whispered. His heat signature is distinctive, 4 arms, remember. Nodded was the most dangerous opponent, highly skilled, experienced, and in a power that is already considerable strength. Phase 2 was moment. While the instructors watched the front entrance, he moved to the rear wall. His species' natural strength was incredible, and he had learned human techniques for maximizing impact force. He placed shaped charges at structural weak points and retreated. The explosion was controlled but effective. A section of the rear wall collapsed inward, creating a hole large enough for entry. Immediately, the facility's alarms began blaring. Phase 3 happened fast, as instructors converged on the breach point and entered from a completely different direction. They had found a maintenance shaft that Aura's thermal vision had identified as unguarded. It was a tight squeeze, but both made it through. Inside, they moved like shadows. Speed was devastating in close quarters. He disabled 2 instructors with precisely placed strikes before they could react. Took a third, using a joint lock she had taught him. The instructor tapped out, impressed despite himself. The hostages were on the 2nd floor. Squad 7 regrouped at the stairwell. Above them, they could hear Weapons Master moving. His footsteps were heavy, even in the... He knows we are here, Aura said quietly. He is waiting at the hostage room. Of course he is, said. He is testing us. Can we work together to overcome a superior opponent? Cracked his knuckles, the sound like stones grinding. Then let us show him. They ascended the stairs carefully. The hostage room door was open, and through it they could see. That made him even more imposing, adding bulk and height to his already massive frame. Each of his 4 arms held a different weapon. Stun batons, neural disruptors, all set to non-lethal but painful settings. Well done getting this far, his voice boomed from the suit's speakers. But this is where most squads fail. Show me what you have learned. Squad 7 spread out, each taking position. They had trained for this, not specifically against, but against the principle of overwhelming opposition. Charged first, drawing fire. His species' natural armor combined with the combat techniques had taught him made him an excellent tank. He absorbed multiple stun rounds, gritting his teeth against the pain. Aura and flanked, moving too fast for to track both simultaneously. They created crossfire, forcing him to split his attention. Worked at a wall panel, her fingers flying across alien technology. Waited, patience was a virtue her instructors on Earth had drilled into her. Wait for the opening, wait for the moment. Hacking worked. This targeting system flickered just for 1 second, less than a second, really, but it was enough. Moved, she crossed the distance in 3 strides and struck the power coupling at the suit's lower back, a weak point she had studied in technical manuals. The impact was precise, calculated, not enough to injure inside, but enough to disrupt the suit's power distribution. The froze, motors locked, stood immobilized inside his own armor. For a moment there was silence, then laugh echoed through the room. Outstanding, absolutely outstanding. Emergency releases activated and the suit opened. Stepped out, his rocky face showing genuine pride. Squad 7, you have passed. All hostages extracted, no casualties, and you defeated me in under 50 minutes. That is the fastest time this year. The team erupted in celebration, picked up and spun her around, and Aura embraced in their species equivalent of a high five, stood back watching her team with satisfaction. Approached her. You waited for the perfect moment, that takes discipline. You taught me that, sir. Patience is strength. 1 week later, the entire academy gathered for the graduation ceremony. The grand hall was filled with cadets, instructors, and visiting dignitaries from across the galaxy. Stood with Squad 7, all of them in dress uniforms. Commander presided over the ceremony. He spoke about duty, honor, and the responsibility of peacekeepers. Then he called forward Squad 7 to receive special recognition for the highest score in the final examination. As valedictorian, was asked to address the assembly. She stepped to the podium, looking out at hundreds of faces representing dozens of species. 3 months ago, she began, I shattered a floor in the combat hall, but that is not what I am proud of. I am proud that we shattered assumptions. We proved that strength is not about power, it is about unity. She gestured to her squad mates standing nearby. Each species here has unique gifts. Aura's people see heat and move with impossible grace. People have strength and durability. People have speed and precision. People have technical brilliance. Alone, we are capable. Together, we are unstoppable. Her voice grew stronger. That is the lesson Earth sent me to share. Not that humans are strong, not that we should be feared or respected because of what we can do, but that every species, every individual has value. And when we combine those values, when we learn from each other instead of fearing each other, we become something greater. The hall was silent, listening. I came here thinking I needed to prove myself. I learned instead that I needed to prove we could work together. That is what humanity believes. That is what we offer to the galaxy. Not strength alone, but strength in service of cooperation. She stepped back from the podium. The hall erupted in applause. Cadets from every species stood, clapping, cheering. Even the normally stoic instructors showed approval. After the ceremony, Squad 7 gathered one final time in their team room. Their assignments had come through. They had requested to serve together, and their request had been approved. Tomorrow they would leave for the frontier, where they would serve as peacekeepers in contested space. Thank you, said Tu, for teaching us, for showing us that different does not mean weak. Thank you for being willing to learn, replied. They stood together at the viewport, watching Earth in the distance. Squad 7, 5 beings from 5 different worlds, united by training and friendship. Somewhere in that grand station, the preserved section of broken floor remained. A reminder of the day everything changed. The day a small human showed the galaxy that assumptions were meant to be shattered. And that strength, true strength, came not from standing alone but from standing together. As she finished recording, she looked out her viewport at the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth, small and blue and perfect. She was here to represent that world, to show the galaxy what humanity could be. And she would do everything in her power to make Earth proud. Commander raised one of his blade-like arms. The crowd quieted. Let this be a lesson to all of you. Never assume you understand a species' capabilities based on appearance alone. The galaxy is vast and diverse. What seems weak may be strong. What seems fragile may be unbreakable. He looked at, Cadet Carter has demonstrated not just physical capability but control. She could have used this power in her sparring match with Cadet. She could have injured or killed without meaning to. Instead, she chose a controlled demonstration. That shows wisdom and restraint. Those qualities are as important as strength. Weapons Master stepped forward. Combat assessments are concluded for today. Maintenance teams will repair the arena. All cadets are dismissed except Cadet Carter. Please remain. The crowd dispersed slowly, cadets still talking among themselves. Many glanced back at as they left. The atmosphere had completely changed. The small human was no longer an oddity or a concern. She was something else entirely. When the hall was empty except for the two instructors and approached, his expression was unreadable, but his voice was calm. "Come with me, Cadet Carter. We need to talk about why you are really here." Stepped back, rolling her shoulder once, she looked at Commander. "Would you like me to demonstrate again, sir?" "Let them underestimate you," her commanding officer had said. "Let them think humans are weak. Then show them what we really are. But do it with honor, with control. We are not proving we are better. We are proving we are equal." Closed her eyes. Tomorrow the real test would begin, and she was ready.